The child who is not welcomed by the community will set it ablaze to experience its warmth. This African proverb illustrates a poignant truth. Picture a child raised in a setting where their cries go unheard, where no one gazes at them with kindness, where their successes are overlooked and their suffering is trivialized. Now envision that child growing up, carrying invisible wounds that influence their thoughts, their capacity to love, and their self-perception. 1. What if I told you that childhood neglect is one of the most underestimated, yet profoundly damaging experiences a person can face? What if I said that its impact does not simply diminish over time, but rather becomes woven into the very essence of who we are? And what if I reveal that the final truth I will share in this video is the most significant of all? One that could transform your understanding of yourself and those around you forever. Neglect may be unseen, but its repercussions are irrefutable. Unlike physical abuse, which leaves visible bruises and scars, neglect imprints on the mind and spirit. It's not merely about a child being left alone. It's about emotional absence, the silent message that their needs are unimportant. While some children grow up in environments filled with overt violence or cruelty, others suffer a more insidious form of pain, the anguish of being invisible, unheard, and emotionally neglected. And the most heartbreaking aspect, many individuals who endure neglect in their childhood remain unaware of the deep scars it leaves behind. They often believe that because they were not physically harmed, they were not truly affected. Yet, research reveals a different story. Developmental psychology has extensively examined the repercussions of emotional neglect, and the results are unsettling. Neuroscientist Bruce Perry, a leading authority on childhood trauma, illustrates how a child's brain molds itself to its surroundings. When a child is enveloped in love, stability, and attention, their brain develops in a manner that nurtures security and self-assurance. Conversely, growing up in an unpredictable or emotionally barren setting forces their brain to adapt for mere survival. Their stress response system becomes overly sensitive, inundating their body with cortisol, the hormone linked to the fight or flight response. Over time, this relentless exposure to stress alters the brain, making it increasingly challenging to manage emotions, trust others, and feel a sense of safety in the world. Yet, the impact of neglect extends beyond the brain. It profoundly influences how a person forms connections throughout their life. Psychologist John Bowlby, the pioneer of attachment theory, found that children deprived of consistent emotional support develop insecure attachment styles. Some may become anxiously attached, perpetually seeking reassurance and living in fear of abandonment. Others might adopt an avoidant attachment style, convincing themselves they need no one, burying their emotions to shield themselves from further heartache. The weight of this neglect lingers, shaping their relationships and sense of self in ways that are often painfully invisible. Then there are those who develop disorganized attachment, a heart-wrenching blend of yearning and fear that renders their relationships tumultuous and unpredictable. Take a moment to reflect. How many individuals do you know who grapple with their connections, pushing others away even as they desperately seek love, or who find it impossible to trust, regardless of the reassurances they receive? How often do we hastily judge others for being overly needy or too distant, without pausing to consider the pain that shaped them? What if their actions stem not from choice, but from a deeply rooted response to a childhood where their emotional needs were overlooked? The scars of neglect reach far beyond relationships. They seep into every corner of life. Research has shown that children who endure neglect face a heightened risk of mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and even personality disorders. Many carry a heavy burden of chronic self-doubt, struggling to believe they deserve love or success. Some may resort to self-destructive behaviors, substance abuse, reckless choices, or even criminal acts, not out of malice, but as a desperate attempt to fill the emotional void left by years of neglect. The sadness of their plight often goes unseen, leaving them trapped in a cycle of pain. When warmth is a stranger, one may find themselves wandering into perilous realms in search of it. Yet, the haunting truth remains: childhood neglect is one of the most overlooked forms of suffering. Society readily condemns the brutality of physical abuse, but it often shrugs off emotional neglect as trivial or inconsequential. We witness adults grappling with their emotions, sabotaging their relationships, and wrestling with addiction, labeling them as weak or irresponsible. Yet, how often do we pause to ponder their past? How often do we consider that these destructive behaviors might be echoes of deep-seated wounds inflicted long before they could comprehend their pain? But what if there exists a way to shatter this relentless cycle? What if acknowledging the scars of childhood neglect could illuminate a path toward healing? And what if the most profound revelation I will unveil at the end of this video could ignite a flicker of hope for those who have suffered in silence, trapped in their own shadows for far too long? Stay with me, for the truth I am about to disclose may alter everything. Neglect does not merely shape the emotional terrain of a person, it distorts their very grasp of reality. A child raised in the absence of emotional validation learns to mistrust their own feelings. They absorb the chilling notion that their emotions are inconsequential, that their needs are a burden, and that seeking solace or connection will only lead to heartache. As time passes, this belief system becomes deeply ingrained in their identity, influencing every facet of their existence. Picture a child who tumbles and scrapes their knee. A caring adult rushes to their side, offering comfort and tending to the injury. This simple gesture does more than alleviate the pain. It conveys to the child that their suffering is acknowledged, that support is within reach, and that they are not alone in their distress. Now envision another child who suffers the same scrape, but receives no comfort, no recognition, no validation of their hurt. That child absorbs a different message that their pain goes unnoticed, that they must bear their suffering in solitude, and that seeking help is futile. This lesson lingers long into adulthood. Those who faced emotional neglect often find it challenging to recognize and articulate their feelings. They may feel numb, disconnected, or lost in understanding their true desires. They might minimize their own pain, convincing themselves that their emotions are trivial, or comparing their struggles to those of others who seem worse off. This is one of the most heartbreaking consequences of neglect. It leads its victims to believe they are overreacting, that their anguish is unworthy of attention, and that they should simply move on. Yet, neuroscience reveals that the brain does not simply recover from prolonged emotional neglect. The prefrontal cortex, which governs decision-making and emotional regulation, develops in a way that reflects this neglect. The amygdala reinforces the notion that their pain is trivial, urging them to just get over it. Neuroscience indicates that the brain does not simply recover from prolonged emotional neglect. In neglected children, the prefrontal cortex, which is crucial for decision-making and emotional regulation, develops differently. The amygdala, the area of the brain associated with fear, becomes overly active, leading these individuals to be more susceptible to anxiety, panic, and emotional overwhelm. As these neglected children grow into adulthood, they may experience a persistent sense of unease, as if they are always anticipating something negative, even in safe and calm situations. The repercussions extend further. Research has demonstrated that children who experience neglect are more likely to struggle with self-esteem, often feeling unworthy of love, success, or happiness. Some may develop perfectionistic traits, convinced that if they work hard enough or achieve enough, they will finally gain recognition and value. Conversely, others may shy away from challenges altogether, believing that failure is unavoidable. This stems from a deep-seated subconscious belief, I am not enough. This belief also manifests in their relationships. Many adults who face neglect in childhood find it difficult to establish boundaries. Some may become people pleasers, seeking approval, and fearing that asserting their own needs will alienate others. Others may become emotionally detached, erecting barriers to shield themselves from the pain of rejection. Additionally, there are those who oscillate between these extremes, desiring closeness yet fearing it, pushing people away even as they yearn for connection. Perhaps the most sorrowful consequence of neglect is how effortlessly it can be passed down through generations. A child who never experienced emotional validation may grow into a parent who finds it difficult to offer the same to their own children, not out of malice, but simply because they were never shown how. Neglect is often unintentional. It can stem from a lineage of emotional scars, with parents unknowingly perpetuating harmful patterns. Yet, amidst this sadness, there is a glimmer of hope. The cycle can be interrupted. Healing from neglect isn't about casting blame on the past. It's about coming to terms with it. It involves recognizing the deep-seated patterns formed in childhood and making a deliberate choice to alter them. It's about learning to acknowledge feelings, establishing boundaries, and believing in one's own value. While the marks of neglect may linger, they need not dictate the entirety of a person's existence. But how does one embark on this path to healing? What steps can assist someone who has faced emotional neglect in reclaiming their identity And what is the most profound truth that holds the power to transform suffering into resilience? In the next segment of this video, we will explore these questions. Stay with me, for what follows could be the pivotal moment you have been yearning for. Healing from childhood neglect is a complex journey. It's not simply a matter of waking up one day and choosing to move on. It involves unraveling years, sometimes even decades, of subconscious conditioning. It's about learning to appreciate oneself after a lifetime of being told, either directly or indirectly, that one's needs are insignificant. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of healing is this: before one can progress, they must first recognize what has been lost. Many survivors of childhood neglect find this initial step difficult. They often downplay their own suffering, convincing themselves that their childhood wasn't that bad or that others had it worse. However, healing demands honesty. It requires a clear examination of the past, not to linger in pain but to comprehend it. Only by acknowledging the emotional scars left by neglect can one start the healing process. A crucial early step in this journey is learning to reconnect with one's emotions. Neglect teaches children to stifle their feelings, to ignore their needs, and to view their emotions as sources of shame or inconvenience. As adults, this often results in emotional numbness and a feeling of disconnection from oneself. Some individuals describe their existence as if they are mere spectators in their own lives, moving through each day like a ghost, devoid of genuine experience. To truly reconnect with emotions, one must carve out a sanctuary for feeling, free from the shadows of judgment and rejection. Mindfulness emerges as a potent weapon in this battle against emotional numbness. Neuroscience has revealed that practices like meditation and deep breathing can soothe the frayed nerves, calming the relentless storm of stress that often arises from the haunting echoes of childhood neglect. Through mindfulness, individuals can begin to acknowledge their emotions, allowing them to surface rather than banishing them into the abyss. They can learn to endure the discomfort instead of fleeing from it. Equally vital to the journey of healing is the cultivation of self-compassion. Survivors of neglect frequently bear the weight of a merciless inner critic, a sinister voice that whispers they are unworthy, that love is a distant dream, and that solitude is their inevitable fate. This voice is not their own. It is a chilling remnant of the neglect they endured. The path to replacing this cruel whisper with kindness and acceptance is fraught with challenges, yet it stands as one of the most profound transformations one can undertake. Psychologist Kristin Neff, a leading authority on self-compassion, has demonstrated that embracing self-kindness over self-judgment can diminish anxiety, bolster resilience, and foster a healthier self-image. However, healing is not a solitary endeavor. One of the most insidious consequences of childhood neglect is the belief that one must bear their burdens alone, trapped in a cycle of isolation. Many survivors struggle deeply with trusting others, seeking help, or leaning on anyone for emotional support. Yet, studies reveal that connection is crucial for healing. Safe and nurturing relationships, whether through friendships, therapy, or community, can offer the emotional validation that was so painfully absent during childhood. For some, therapy becomes a vital part of this journey. Collaborating with a therapist who understands childhood trauma can guide individuals in recognizing their patterns, processing their past, and finding healthier ways to connect with themselves and others. Approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing, and somatic experiencing have proven effective in addressing the wounds of childhood neglect and trauma. However, healing transcends the mind. It encompasses the body as well. The body holds on to what the mind desperately tries to forget. Trauma, including emotional neglect, is embedded in the nervous system, which is why many survivors endure physical manifestations like chronic fatigue, digestive troubles, muscle tension, or even autoimmune disorders. Engaging in practices that help release this stored trauma, such as yoga, dance, or breathwork, can be profoundly healing. Yet, perhaps the most challenging aspect of recovery is the necessity for survivors of childhood neglect to learn how to reparent themselves. They must become the source of love, validation, and care that they so desperately needed but never received. This journey is fraught with difficulty, as it requires confronting the very void that shaped their existence. Yet, perhaps the most challenging aspect of healing lies in a painful truth. Those who have endured childhood neglect must learn to nurture themselves. They must become the source of the love, validation, and care that was absent in their early years. This journey involves creating a safe internal space, one where self-criticism for feeling hurt is silenced, where boundaries can be established, and where the validity of their needs is acknowledged. But what if I told you there's something even more profound waiting to be discovered? What if the very source of your pain could transform into a new kind of strength? One that not only reshapes your life but also echoes through generations. In the concluding part of this video, we will unveil a crucial truth about healing from childhood neglect. A truth that holds the potential to alter everything. Stay with me, for what follows may be the most significant revelation of all. The most powerful truth about healing from childhood neglect is this: the suffering you endured does not have to define you. While the scars of your past may have influenced who you are, they need not dictate your future. In fact, the very challenges that once hindered you can lay the groundwork for your greatest resilience. Many survivors of neglect carry an overwhelming sense of shame, convinced that their pain signifies weakness. What if the opposite were true? What if overcoming childhood neglect is not a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to resilience? The fact that you are here, striving to understand, heal, and grow, this is evidence of something remarkable. It signifies that, despite everything, a part of you has never surrendered. A part of you still holds on to the hope for something better, and that part is incredibly powerful. Psychologist Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, once stated, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. While you may not be able to alter the past, you possess the ability to change how it influences your future." Healing does not involve erasing what has occurred. It involves transforming it. It means taking the pain that once caused suffering and converting it into a source of wisdom, compassion, and strength. One of the most profound methods to achieve this is through finding purpose. Research in psychology indicates that those who discover meaning in their suffering are more likely to experience post-traumatic growth, a process where adversity leads to significant personal transformation. This does not imply that suffering is essential for growth, but it does suggest that growth can occur even after experiencing hardship. Many individuals who endure childhood neglect go on to become healers, teachers, mentors, and advocates. They take the love they never received and channel it into uplifting others, becoming the very person they once longed for. Yet, the true transformation lies in this: when you heal, it's not just for your own sake. You shatter a cycle that may have haunted your family for generations. You become the source of warmth, understanding, and validation for others. Be it your children, friends, or even strangers who are desperately in need of kindness. The impact of your healing reaches far beyond your own life. Pause and reflect on that for a moment. Every act of self-compassion, every boundary you establish, you rewrite the narrative of your existence, proving that neglect does not hold the ultimate power over you. If you still question whether healing is within your grasp, remember this: the mere fact that you are here, listening, absorbing, and contemplating is already evidence that your journey has begun. Healing isn't about achieving a flawless state where struggles cease to exist. It's about the daily choice to treat yourself with the kindness and care you have always deserved. The most profound truth is this: you are not broken. You are in the process of becoming, and your story is far from finished. If this message resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Your words might be the lifeline someone else needs today. And always remember, you are deserving of love, healing, and a future that holds hope. Thank you for being here.